Hello, and welcome to another episode of Adamo Baseball, where I'm your host, Adamo. And in this episode, I'm going to be discussing the 1903 World Series. So, something I've kind of wanted to do for a while is that I want to break down every single World Series. And obviously, where better to start than with the first one? I'm only going to be doing this during the regular season, and it's going to be on Mondays. Next year, I'm going to pick up right where I left off this year, and I think it'll go into a season 3. So, yeah, just so you don't get too antsy for, one in January. Let's go ahead and break this down. Today, we know them as the Boston Red Sox. Back then, they were called the Boston Americans. Why they changed their name, I don't know yet. That is one of the things I plan to look into because I think in 1912 they were the Red Sox. But the Red Sox, or the Americans, if you will, defeated the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're one of the few teams that, if you go back that far, did not change their name in any way. It's actually really surprising how nobody changed their name. How few teams did not change their name at some point. The Dodgers were the Brooklyn Robins. The Yankees were the New York Highlanders. The New York Giants were the New York Giants, not the San Francisco Giants, etc., etc. There are a few exceptions, like the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Detroit Tigers, Chicago Cubs, etc., etc. I may do a specific episode where I break that down, but I digress. It also was not the World Series at the time, it was the World Championship. And it was called the World Championship at the time for marketing purposes. It wasn't about having like the best team in the world or whatnot. It was to market it that way because baseball is seen as, America's pastime, is seen as a true American sport. On my podcast, I did a full episode on the Doubleday Cooperstown myth, which basically states that originally it was seen as an American sport, created by an American Civil War general. You do your research, you find out that that didn't actually happen that way. But it was seen as an American sport and is designed to draw fans in from everywhere. Immigration has always been a big thing in the U.S., but it was still not really organized yet. So calling it a world championship made everyone feel included. It'd be nice if we all felt a little included, but that's just me talking. The American League, was brand new. It was only 3 years old at the time. It was founded in 1900, which is actually why we consider after 1900 the modern era. Whereas the National League had actually been around since 1869. The first team was the Cincinnati Red Stockings, and yes, those are the Cincinnati Reds today. And the second team was the Boston Braves. That was the team that the Reds played first, or Red Stockings played first because of reasons. Well, the American League was still new, and basically they decided just to have it out between the two leagues. All right, you're going to play with the big boys, you're going to try and beat the big boys, as the National League thought. Well, the Boston Americans won the American League pennant by 14.5 games. They didn't have divisions back then. You win the league or you don't. So, the two leagues' best team squared off in the World Series, which is prior to, I want to say it was like 98, 97, something like that. Teams from the National League had never played teams in the American League. Not like, because the only time that they ever could have was in the World Series. So during the regular season, they never square off. I think it was 2005 when the Cardinals and the Blue Jays played each other for the first time. You know, that kind of thing. Well, so it was a best of 9 series, meaning first team to win 5 games wins the series. It's best of 7 now, but 1903, it was best of 9. And there's actually quite a few series where there were best of 9 series. The last one was in 1919. It's been best of 7 ever since. So yeah, Boston Americans won the American League pennant by 14.5 games, and the 1903 Pittsburgh Pirates, still to this day, are the only team to go an entire season without losing 3 straight games during the regular season. I need to emphasize that fact. The 2001 Seattle Mariners almost did that, but they had one 3-game losing streak in August of 2001. And they lost a series to Oakland, but the 1903 Pittsburgh Pirates did successfully do it. They were the only team in baseball history to accomplish that feat. So they were favored in this series. They were supposed to win it. Not just because of that, but because of the pride of the National League having been around for 40 plus years, and the American League being the new kid on the block. Well, the Pirates won Game 1. They won it 7-3 off of Deacon Phillippe's 6-hitter. Every game he pitched, it was a complete game. He pitched 5 games in 13 days. So if by the end I give the impression that he was exhausted, you'll know why. And they didn't pull pitchers back then. You threw the whole game. There would be 1 or 2 guys in the bullpen, but it wasn't a bullpen, it was whoever you had available. It wasn't like today where, you got 25-man rosters. Back then, it was whoever you had. Yeah. So, fun fact about that first World Series, Jimmy Sebring hit the first World Series home run ever. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, he hit the first World Series home run in 1903 in a 7-3 victory. Game 2, Red Sox pitcher Bill Dineen, get used to hearing that name, threw a 3-hitter, and Patsy Doherty hit 2 home runs in a 3-0 victory. Bill Dineen threw 4 complete games with a 3-1 record overall for the series. Winning that game was actually bigger than we probably realize, because the Pirates won the next 2 games and went up in the series 3-1. In Game 3, Phillippe actually ended up having to start off of one-day rest. This is Game 3. Deacon Phillippe started off of one-day rest because pretty much the entire rest of the team got sick, or like all the rest of the pitchers that they had. I mentioned that it was whoever you happen to have. Well, back then, they had like 3 or 4 guys total, and the rest got sick. So Deacon Phillippe was throwing again. And he was a 25-game winner during the season, because back then you could do that. And he was actually a really good pitcher. If they had Cy Youngs, he'd have won the NL Cy Young. That being the award. He led the Pirates to a 4-2 win, and a couple of names you might recognize, Ginger Beaumont and Honus Wagner, each had 3 hits. And Deacon Phillippe also pitched Game 4. Seeing a theme here? And third baseman Tommy Leach had 3 runs batted in a Game 4 win, 5-4. At this point, the Pirates were up on the series 3-1. Their one available pitcher won all 3 of those games. Just let that sink in. They had one pitcher win all 3 of their games. So if he's a little tired at this point, don't be surprised. Because what happens next is definitely a massive swing. Because in Game 5, Red Sox pitcher and 28-game winner, Cy Young, yeah, that's Cy Young. Not only did he get the win, and he only allowed 6 hits throughout the game in an 11-2 win, he also had 3 RBIs. Back then, the pitchers hit, and the pitchers knew how to hit, or at very least, were actually good at hitting. Game 6, Bill Dineen comes in again, throws a 4-hitter in a 6-3 win. In Game 7, okay, so it wasn't a complete game for Deacon Phillippe in this one, but he was knocked out of the game early as the Americans won Game 7, 7-3. Not only were the pitchers hitting back then, there were player managers. There hasn't been a player manager in baseball since Pete Rose in the 80s. Back then, they all played, mostly. Jimmy Collins, the manager of the Boston Americans, and Chick Stahl both had first-inning triples. Back then, triples were, I won't say common, but they were certainly more common than they are today. But yeah, a player manager had a triple in the first inning of Game 7 of a World Series. Going into this game, the series is tied. This was when the Americans took the series lead, and it was the first time, that was the first time in baseball history that the American League had a lead in the World Series. Because the Pirates took the lead in Game 1. It was tied after Game 2, but then the Pirates won Games 3 and 4. This was the first time that the American League led the World Series. And then Game 8, it still feels a little weird to say that, but in Game 8, Bill Dineen threw a shutout. Deacon Phillippe threw his 5th complete game in 13 days. In a game, the Boston Americans beat the Pittsburgh Pirates 3-0. Imagine having to throw 5 complete games in 13 days. He was knocked out of the game in Game 6. So, yeah, he threw... Yeah. There were 8 games in the World Series. He pitched 6 of them for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He threw 5 of them. He threw complete games. Cy Young's record in the World Series was 2-1. Bill Dineen's record in the World Series was 3-1. And Bill Dineen probably would have gotten the World Series MVP if they had those awards back then. Deacon Phillippe, his record was 3-3. In fairness, when you're forced to throw that many games in such a short period of time, you come away with 3 wins, you did something right. And frankly, that Game 8, he gave up 3 runs. Bill Dineen was just better in that game. I'm sorry, but that's just ridiculous. The last real detail that I have to mention is that Boston, for the series, hit .252, which, as a team, is pretty good. Even by today's standards, that's pretty good. Honus Wagner, for the series, he only hit .237. The man is in the Hall of Fame and is deemed by many, not all, but by many, as the best player in Pittsburgh Pirates history. He did not get that World Series victory to start, but he was in the first World Series. Cy Young was in the first World Series. Just a couple of names that in baseball lore are famous for being like 2 of the best players of all time were in this series. You can't really overlook that because back then you just played for fun. Today we seem to just play for money. If you play for fun, it's usually in a backyard or with your dad. It's actually part of why I love doing this, because I can look at the way the game used to be played. It doesn't necessarily make me nostalgic or anything like that, but it does make me like what they did back then. You know, really puts into perspective how different the game was. Those are my thoughts on the 1903 World Series. If you want to gripe about how I was constantly looking down at my notes, or you liked it, like and subscribe. That would be awesome. That'd be rad. And with that being said, thank you for listening and watching. Cheers until next time.